I bring you greetings from the Minister of Internal Affairs, General Kahindo Tafire, who would have wished to be here, but because of other engagements, he couldn't be here with us. But he sends greetings and is waiting to receive the report of this discussion eagerly. So I'm honored to represent my minister here, and I take this opportunity to welcome you all to this multi-stakeholder roundtable discussion about the findings of the Rapid Threat Assessment Report on violent extremism in high-risk communities in Uganda. We as government appreciate the partnership with the European Union, the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, UNODC, the United Nations Office on Counterterrorism, UNOCT, and various other stakeholders, all working together to prevent and combat violent extremism in our country. The government of Uganda has enhanced coordination framework for preventing and countering violent extremism, PCV initiatives by establishing a national counterterrorism center. I believe, first of all, the fight against counterterrorism is a whole government effort. It involves all sectors of government and therefore requires a center for coordinating all the agencies, and thus the National Counterterrorism Center. This center is tasked with supporting, coordinating, and executing the activities outlined in the Preventing and Countering of Violent Extremism and in the strategy and action plan. The strategy aims to unify and streamline Uganda's effort and approach to PCVE, emphasizing standardization, community engagement, and integration of human rights-based perspectives throughout all this effort. We believe if we work together, we shall be able to achieve all this. The government of Uganda recognizes that factors contributing to violent extremism and terrorism within the country are multifaceted and intricate, necessitating a unified approach at local, national, regional, and international levels. That's where we appreciate the international support we receive. In light of these challenges, it is imperative to establish collaborative initiatives that focus on implementing targeted interventions designed at preventing violent extremism in communities which are considered to be at risk. We join forces to put into action the PCVET strategy, which aims to empower communities through socio-economic measures that can effectively dissuade the recruitment of vulnerable groups into violent extremism activities that may lead to terrorism. And therefore, that's why we greatly appreciate this study, whose results we are going to receive and discuss, because it will help us in our work to identify the areas we need to focus on, to identify where we have performed and achieved, and where there still are existing gaps. The resulting Rapid Threat Assessment Report will deliver essential information, including current trends in violent extremism within the country, and will assist the government in formulating tailored interventions to support these identified vulnerable communities.
While the government and institutions have made remarkable strides, it really is critical that, as has mentioned before, that we more effectively engage everybody. So everybody is more or less in the tent, but we have to make sure that they're more firmly in the tent. Civil society, faith-based organizations, youth groups, local leaders, etc. My understanding of violent extremism is a bit like a virus. And if I've learned anything about viruses, I've learned about viruses in Uganda. And the one thing I've learned about viruses in Uganda is that when this epidemic starts, whatever it is, it always starts at the community and it always ends at the community. And so it really behoves on us to make sure that we work more with the communities to make sure that we can build their resilience for these viruses not to really take root. And where the seeds have already started to be planted, that we work to make sure that they eject them. One effective way to strengthen this community resilience is by fostering the trust between law enforcement agencies and the communities that they serve. Initiatives like community policing can help shift the role of law enforcement from enforcer to protector. And I know that Uganda is already working on this, but how to do more. Creating partnerships that are key to preventing extremism. And as been mentioned also, Uganda, of course, is not in isolation of the broader region, but we are looking forward to Uganda's leadership in this area. It is a very important issue for the region, and we count on Uganda really leading the region in working on preventing violent extremism.
It's my pleasure to be with you today and to represent Ambassador Sadek for this important workshop presenting Uganda threat assessments on violent extremism and terrorism. The EU stands in solidarity with Uganda as we face common security challenges that know no borders. And indeed, terrorism remains one of the most serious threats to international peace and security. And the spate of attack in Europe, in Africa, and elsewhere in the world serve as a stark reminder that these threats persist and continues to evolve. The European Union is committed to global leadership in countering terrorism and violent extremism. This commitment is exemplified by our current role as co-chair of the Global Counterterrorism Forum. Through the GCTF, we are fostering international cooperation and sharing best practices to enhance our collective capacity to prevent, detect, and respond to terrorist threats worldwide. Uganda's comprehensive assessment provides crucial insight into the local dynamics and manifestation of violent extremism. By identifying high-risk communities, pathways to radicalization, and key democratic factors, it lays the groundwork for developing targeted prevention and response measures. The EU counterterrorism agenda, adopted in December 2020, outlines our approach based on 4 pillars: to anticipate, to prevent, to protect, and to respond. And I'm struck by how closely this aligns with Uganda's findings and recommendations. Protection requires reducing vulnerabilities, especially in public spaces and critical infrastructure. Your assessment notes the targeting of places of worship and other public areas, and we are working to strengthen border security and deny terrorists the means to attack through tighter regulation of firearms and explosive precursors. Given Uganda's concern about porous borders and armed proliferation, this could be an area for increased cooperation in the framework of the EU Great Lakes Strategy. Crucially, we share Uganda's emphasis on the whole of society approach. Security and development go hand in hand, and your assessment rightly points out the needs to address socio-economic grievances, promote inclusive governance, and engage communities in prevention efforts. Alongside security measures, we must tackle the underlying factors that extremists exploit. Let me close by reaffirming that our response to terrorism and violent extremism must always uphold the values and rights we seek to protect. As democracies, our strength lies in our openness, diversity, and commitment to human rights and the rule of law. Uganda's assessment emphasizes the importance of preserving these values, even as we confront security challenges. I wish you fruitful discussion and concrete outcome from this workshop. By working together across government, civil society, and communities, we can build more peaceful, inclusive, and resilient society. The EU remains committed to standing with Uganda in this crucial endeavor. Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed the discussion. So firstly, thanks to Professor and team for the work that has been done, for the panelists, for the really good discussions. The reason I stayed, I am passionate about this. I'm from Cameroon. I'm from Cameroon. And I remember when we started talking about Boko Haram. And quite frankly, the feeling that I and many of my peers had was, a ragtag bunch of nobodies. It will disappear. Today, Boko Haram is a force to be reckoned with. And it's not just Cameroon and Nigeria. Look at what is happening in Mali and other countries. So for me, these things, they're important. We should never treat them as if, oh, it's, you know, it's small. When you see a tiny snake that you know is poisonous, it can grow tomorrow, unless you ensure that there are conditions for it not to grow. So for me, it's important. We see this rise. We know that it is rising. We know that a lot of work is being done. I am sometimes concerned that we're not doing as much as we should be doing. East Africa is still in a relatively privileged position, and it should seize all the advantages. The question was asked at some point of, okay, so the definitions, crime, violent extremism, and in my head immediately I thought, okay, what's the difference between HIV, AIDS, and early pregnancy? Of course they're different, but the same mechanisms that fuel one enhance the other. So we need to do everything we can really to really clamp down these things. There are societies that have been completely destroyed by crime. Central America, gangs all over the place. I would argue that there are some of those seeds present here. Seeds. They're not worrisome yet, they're not taking over our lives yet, but the seeds are there. We should get rid of them.